Week number 10. We're finally here. It is the end. This is the last video that you guys will see from me. First of all, I want to thank you all for being vulnerable and preaching on camera. And I wish I could have seen you guys face to face. I think it was really great to be able to see different styles and to learn from you and to be able to have conversations around that. So thanks for doing that. So I'm just going to go step by step in these questions. Number one, what have you learned about yourself as a preacher in terms of your strength and growth edges? First off, I think my strengths being able to tell story and being able to interweave things and to use words in a way that helps depict what I'm talking about, that kind of evokes some imagery for people. I really appreciate that and learned that. I think some growth stages and where I really grew and took some big steps forward, I think, during this course was doing the exegesis and doing the exegetical studies and the way that we did it. I think that in the past I haven't spent as much time doing that. I've done some exegetical work and read some commentaries, but it was kind of more of like just to make sure that I was on the right page and not necessarily to like go and hunt and find some treasure that's hidden within the scripture. And I think I did that a lot more during this class, and so it was great to be able to pull those out and to be able to use those moving forward. So that's awesome. Question number 2, how has your understanding of the gospel been changed, widened, and or reinforced? This kind of was the theme for me and continues to be the theme, right? So kind of going back and forth between Tim Keller and Andy Stanley. Andy Stanley really preaches with the idea of having one practical step because we're trying to move people to a sense of change and transformation. To not just think something in their mind and then to leave and forget it all, but to actually do something about it. And so it makes it really complicated idea, really common language, and gives like a one concrete sentence phrase of like, hey, this is what I want you to do. And so we've done that for a while of saying, hey, how do you do this? Well, one way of this is I want you to read this passage when you get home before you go to bed, or something like that. But at the same time, Tim Keller talks a lot about preaching the gospel in every message. And so I think that my ability to understand the gospel has been changed in some sense of I think I need to kind of go back and forth between the two and not to just have one. Because in one side it says, okay, the message underlying is you need to do more and continue to work harder and get this right? But the other side of hey, let's just keep pointing you back to Jesus over and over, that's also true, but there are some people who are craving for practical tools on how to move it forward. So I think that that's just widened my understanding of the faith and works coming together and be able to preach on that. Number 3, where do you sense the Spirit leading you to develop, pursue, and share your gift of preaching? In what particular theological, social, economic, and or cultural setting? So as far as preaching, I became a volunteer Boulder County Police chaplain this time. So there's some avenues to do that, but it's not necessarily the same. I do have opportunities to preach at the church that I'm at. So I think continuing to take steps forward and to do that. A few times people have asked me to preach more than I have. But to be honest, I'm a little reluctant just for the fact that I know how much work it is, and it's not really written into my job description. And so if I prepare a sermon, right, it's taken sometimes 20 hours out of my week that would be allocated for another job, and so it feels almost impossible to kind of do my full-time job and then also preach on top of that. But I think that's an area that I can grow in and maybe try to rearrange my schedule in places and predetermine that ahead of time that works well for me, so I can kind of do both. Do I have any lingering questions about or desired areas for further study in terms of preaching? I think overall, just continued being able to interweave story, and I want to become more of a studier in just public speaking, just that area, because that, although we've learned, right, public speaking is different than preaching, there is a very true and real element that says that the better public speaker you are, the better your message will be received. And so if you're preaching but you're using public speaking elements and tools to advance that message, I don't think that that's a bad thing. And so being able to use body language better, being able to use eye language, if I'm telling a story and I want to get really fast, being able to describe that, to use that, or if I really want to slow down, or if I want to whisper so people lean in, kind of using those things, and then even just using body language to moving around, just trying to be able to experiment a little bit with that to kind of get my point more across. And then number 5, just any other feedbacks. Again, just wanted to say thank you guys for putting the work and effort in. I know it feels weird. It does for me too, to like post things online and have people critique and grade you, because it feels like it's almost like a piece of art and it's not like a education thing. But I think we made each other better and sharpened each other. So it's been a privilege being in the class with you guys, and I learned a lot, and I'm excited to continue moving forward. And hopefully you guys are doing well and being okay, especially with everything that's going on in our world and our country.